Hello, welcome to the ESPC show, and as ever, it's Paul and it's
Megan.
And it's always a popular episode, this one, first time buyer special.
Yes, it is. So we are with Maurice Allen from Lindsay's. He is the Residential Property Managing Director over there, and he joined us to basically answer all of our first time buyer related questions.
Yeah, very experienced, been in the market a long time, really knows the market inside out and gives us some really good nuggets. So without further ado, here's the show.
So today we are joined by Maurice from Lindsay's. You're a returning guest.
Indeed.
You've been on the podcast last season, but you're here for our first time buyer episode. One of our really
always a popular one.
Yeah, a very popular episode.
And so are you, Maurice.
So just to kick us off, I wondered if you wanted to chat us through what advice you would give anyone who's a first time buyer who is right at the start of the process. What is the first step they should take?
Okay, there's two things really, and it's important to get these things in place before you really start looking or making offers. The first thing you need to understand is how much you can afford to spend on a property. So the starting point there is to speak to an independent financial advisor or mortgage advisor. There's several here at the ESPC that you can contact, walk into the showroom or contact through the phone and make an appointment. And they will sit down with you, take details of your income, the amount of deposit you're going to have, and the affordability of your repayments. And they then search the whole of the market, the whole of the mortgage market. So they're looking at different types of products, different types of lenders, and they'll come back to you with their recommendations. So once you've got that in place, and it's a fairly swift process, once you've got that in place, you'll have an understanding of the amount you can afford to spend on a purchase. And that narrows your search down a bit because it obviously excludes properties above a particular value. So you concentrate your search quite quickly. And the second thing I would say is get in touch with a solicitor. You can't buy or sell a property in Scotland without a solicitor. So registering with a solicitor allows you to be in a position quite quickly. If you see a property, you're then able to act quite quickly. You've got your solicitor lined up. You've already given them your ID, you've registered with that solicitor as a new client, and you're ready to go. So those are the first two steps: get the finances sorted out and get the solicitor in place. In terms of the mortgage, quite often what will happen through the mortgage broker is they'll enter into a thing called a mortgage agreement in principle. So they would contact the mortgage company, give all your details, and the mortgage company would give you a yes or a no as to, yes, you can borrow up to a certain amount. It doesn't mean they've granted you the mortgage, it doesn't mean they've forwarded any funds to you, but you know exactly the amount that you can go to, and that lender will lend you that money. Once you find the actual property that you're going to bid on, or once you've had your offer accepted on a property, then you enter into the actual mortgage application for a particular property. But having a mortgage agreed in principle is really handy because that gives a little bit of comfort to the selling solicitors or selling agents that you've already started that process and you're going to have access to the funds.
Yeah, you're a serious and credible buyer, really.
And I guess engaging with a solicitor early, you can also get an idea of what the fees are going to be, and that can also go into your budgeting, I guess.
Exactly. So there, as well as the cost of the property, there are other costs associated with buying property. One of them is the solicitor's fees. They will charge usually a fixed rate, a fixed fee to do all the legal work for the purchase. But there are other outlays there as well, things like land registration dues. So when you buy a property, the title is placed into your name. That title has to be registered with the Registers of Scotland. There's a cost, not through the solicitor, but there's a cost from Registers of Scotland, which is paid for by the purchaser. So when you get a quote from the solicitor, their fees and all the outlays associated with the sale will be included in that quote, and that allows you to budget when you're looking to purchase. The other thing that's included in there is the LBTT, better known probably as stamp duty. That was the old terminology for it, and that's the tax paid when you buy a property. Once you know what you're going to be spending, the solicitor will work out the LBTT for you. But you can also go online. There's various websites that have calculators. The ESPC website has one as well, so it's very easy to find out what the LBTT
Probably a little
cost.
bit on our site, actually.
Yeah.
That's great, Maurice. And I think interesting. We did a show, didn't we, the other week, that don't be afraid of mortgages. So, and I think that's the point that you're making. There can be a pleasant surprise there. You might find you can stretch yourself more than you thought, but equally, we don't really want people stretching themselves. But the mortgage advisor will sit down with you and go through that and look at the affordability and do some stress testing on those things. Let's just go back to the role of the solicitor then. So, as you say, you've got a solicitor early on, and the checks they do to verify your ID is something that's the law now, isn't it? The anti-money laundering checks, etc. Once all that's through, how does the solicitor fit into the buying process then? What will they do? Well, they're going to... let me answer the question. Over to you, Maurice.
What they will do is in the initial stages is give advice. So once you've identified a property, they will find out what the situation is with that particular sale. Are there multiple notes of interest? Is it on at a fixed price? Are the purchasers receptive to an offer?
So they'll sound out the
date?
other side, and then generally that might be another ESPC solicitor on the other side.
Exactly, could well be. And so they'll be able to get that information and then advise as to the strategy for making an offer. You can't make an offer without a solicitor. You can try. You can make a verbal offer to a selling agent, but until that offer's in writing, it doesn't really mean anything, because the written offer contains the conditions of your offer, and that's what the selling agent or the selling solicitor will want to see, is what conditions are attached to this offer before they can take it to their client and properly consider it. So the solicitor acting for you in the purchase will talk you through the various options. And then if you decide to make an offer, they'll advise on the amount to offer and then submit that offer in writing. If that offer is then accepted, then we're into the legal process. We can maybe come to that later, but it's quite an involved process. The solicitor has a lot to do over the period of weeks, usually, that it takes to get to a position where you've concluded a contract, concluded missives for the sale of the property. Once you've concluded missives, agreed the contract, you've got a binding contract on both sides between the buyer and the seller, and then towards the entry date, the settlement date, the solicitor will then deal with the mortgage company to get the funds into the solicitor's account, get your deposit into the solicitor's account, ready for payment a day or two before the settlement's due to take place.
Good.
And so something that we often get asked at our first-time buyer events or via the website is about government schemes. So there used to be the Help to Buy scheme, but are there any government schemes or assistance available for first-time buyers in Scotland?
There are, and there's plenty of information available on the government websites, but you have to sort of keep up with it, because when the government introduced schemes, there's one called LIFT, for example, which is, I've got a note of it here, the Low Cost Initiative for First-Time Buyers. It's known as LIFT. That scheme gets a particular amount of money every year from the government. At the moment, the 2024-25 financial year, the funds haven't been allocated yet, and they've run out from the previous year.
Very quickly.
They do run out very, very quickly. So you have to be kind of on top of it. Contact them, find out if there is money available, and if so, apply as quick as you can, because once the money is gone, it's gone, and it's gone for another year. So those schemes are very, very good. They generally have caveats attached. You can only buy up to 125,000, for example, and you can't pay more than the home report value for a particular property. So they don't suit every purchase, but they certainly assist first-time buyers in terms of affordability.
Yeah. And in terms of, I think we've answered this question, but just maybe there's a little bit more to give, is in terms of the process of making an offer, how does that work? It's not legally binding at the point you're making the offer. Yeah. And so, you're not paying the solicitor at that point either, are you? You're not handing over any money at that point?
Indeed. The way most solicitors work is that solicitors won't charge for making offers. So you could make several unsuccessful offers for a property if you're outbid or if your offer is not accepted. Normally, the fee for the purchase is paid on the day of settlement. So when you're getting your deposit and your mortgage money, you would also deposit the amount of the lawyer's fee at that point. And it's the opposite when you're selling. If you sell a property, the proceeds of the sale come into the lawyer and they remove their sale fee at that point. So that's all done on the settlement date by the solicitor. But you're kept up to date with exactly how much that's going to be and when that payment's going to take place. But the process really is that the work starts the day the offer is accepted. That offer letter is the first part of the missives, first part of the contract. The offer goes in, and then the selling solicitor will respond to that offer. It's called a qualified acceptance. So they accept the offer, and then they qualify it by, amending particular points within the offer. And various letters go back and forwards between the purchasing solicitor and the selling solicitor until both sides are happy with the contract that's in place. And at that point, the missives are concluded, and you have a binding contract. Then there's usually a period of time between missives concluding and the actual entry date. It could be days, it could be weeks, it just depends on the timescales. But normally, reasonably well in advance of the settlement date, you'll have a binding contract.
Good.
So we're kind of jumping around the process here, but
we've moved in now, I think, have we?
Yeah. Well, if we go right back to the start, if you're looking, so we've got all the information about the process. One of the things that we always recommend people do before they go to a property viewing is look at the home report. So what is, for anyone listening that doesn't know what a home report is, what is a home report and how does it impact the buying process? Okay,
so the home report, I keep thinking of it as a relatively new thing. It's not. I think it was brought in 2008.
Yes. Very end of 2008, start of 2009.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Prior to 2008, a buyer would get a survey done on a property, and that was to satisfy the lender that the property was worth a particular amount of money and that there were no outstanding issues with the property. The problem with that system was that multiple people were all having surveys done on the same property. So lots of money was being wasted because only one person ended up buying the property. All the unsuccessful bidders paid for surveys that was a waste of money for them.
I mean, that must have hurt, mustn't it?
It was a very
double
expensive
whammy of disappointments and being out of pocket.
Exactly. So the Scottish Government quite rightly said, let's move to a system where there's a single survey, and that survey is now paid for and produced, or paid for and supplied by the seller rather than the buyer. So the way that works is that a surveyor, a chartered surveyor, goes to the property in advance of it going on the market, and they produce what we now know as a home report. Now, the home report is made up of 4 separate elements. There's the survey part, the condition report of the property, there's the mortgage valuation, and there's a thing called an energy performance certificate. And the energy performance certificate deals with the efficiency of the building. Does it have double glazing, loft insulation, the age of the boiler, etc. So the survey, the mortgage valuation, and the energy performance certificate are all produced by the surveyor. And then the 4th element is a property questionnaire, which is completed by the seller of the property.
Some good information in the property questionnaire, isn't there?
Some very good information in there. So those 4 documents are all bound up into one pack, and that's what we know as the home report. And you have to demonstrate, you have to make available a home report to any buyer, or anyone even interested in the property, whether they're viewing it or not. Anyone who wishes to see the home report is allowed to see the home report. Yeah. So the ESPC website, for example, hosts that home report online.
We get a phenomenal amount of downloads, up to 50,000 a month of home reports downloaded.
I mean, we download them when we're looking for clients.
Yes.
One of the first things we'll do is look at the home report. So very often those downloads are not necessarily buyers, but
of course,
other property professionals are looking at it.
It's a good barometer, though, of the interest in the property, I think, when you see the spike in home
Absolutely,
report
and
downloads.
we find that the more home report downloads that you have, the more viewings or
hand in
requests that take place. But the home report is extremely useful because it highlights any potential problems. It's really a guide to what might need to be done to the property, either immediately or in the future. And the condition report is divided into about 20 categories roughly, and they're all graded a 1, a 2 or a 3. If it's a 1, it means everything's fine, nothing wrong with it. A 2 means keep an eye on it, there might be money to be spent or work to be done at some point in the future. And the ones to really watch out for is a 3. A 3 means that you've got a very substantial issue that needs addressed straight away. So it might be water ingress, rising damp, bare electric wires, something, you know, potentially quite problematic. So the two areas that most people look at are that table where you have the 1s, 2s and 3s, and also the valuation report. So
yeah, I think interestingly, I think we're seeing the energy efficiency, the EPC report has become more popular in the last sort of 5 years than it was. I think the rising cost of heating and also the drive for a greener, you know, more efficient way of living. I think we're seeing more interest in that now.
I think that's probably right. And also there's government sort of legislation potentially coming in
down
about,
the tracks, yeah.
about minimum standards of that. So if you are looking to buy now, but potentially the legislation changes in the next 5 years, you might want to be buying something that doesn't need as much upgrading to get it to qualify.
Yeah, again, talk to your solicitor estate agent on that, because I'd say it's a bit of a moving picture. I'm going to jump into this one. What are the common pitfalls to avoid then when buying a property for the first time in Scotland?
Sure.
Don't get too excited.
I think the best advice I can give people is don't rush into it.
Yeah.
Get your mortgage in place, get your solicitor in place, and then start a comprehensive search. It's very easy to see a property that kind of fits the bill and you quite like, and you think you have to rush into it. But actually, as we see year after year after year, there's always more properties coming to the market. So if you miss one or don't decide to go for that one, there will be another one. There might be something better. So don't rush in just because it's the first thing that catches your eye.
Yeah, it's good advice.
And if you take your time to see as many properties as you can, that gives you a picture of what the market is all about. What do you get for your money? Rushing in very quickly, you might make an error that you regret later. So take your time, see as many properties as you can, get a feel for the market, but also you get a much better picture in your own mind about what you want and what you don't want. We often say to buyers, make a list of, say, 10 things that you would like to have in a property. If you can tick 7 or 8 of those boxes, you're doing quite well. The one box you generally can't tick is the price one, because if you tick every other box, then the price is the box that's going to be out of reach. So get a real feel for what's important to you. Is it size of property? Is it number of rooms? Is it location? Is it transport links? Is it a short commute? Is it near to a supermarket? You might need bike storage, whatever it might be. Everybody's different. They all have their own criteria, but get a real understanding in your own mind of what's important to you, because you're very likely as a first-time buyer to be in that property for several years. Most first-time buyers don't move the following year or the year after. So I would say get a real picture in your own mind of what's really important, because you will be there for several years and it's going to be your home, and it's really important that it's right. Yeah. The other bit of advice I would say is, and this comes side by side with taking your time, get as much of a deposit together as possible. Affordability is an issue at the moment. Prices are relatively high, interest rates are also relatively high, so that's all going against the first-time buyer. And also, a lot of first-time buyers are renting. Rents have gone up, so it's more difficult for people to save while they're also paying high rent. So
it's hard.
Take your time to get as big a deposit as you possibly can, because that will impact your interest payments as well. So taking that extra 6 months or a year to get a bit more saving done, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah,
and I think actually this year, I mean, a couple of things you've said there, Maurice. I mean, firstly, definitely more stock, about 35% more stock available in the ESPC, so good reason to take your time. We do love your checklist. That's been, I think we put that on TikTok, didn't we? Because we really like that little quote that you give. And I just say, you can become quite an expert quite quickly, can't you? If you see 10 or 15 properties, you really get to know what's happening in the marketplace at that point. And it's free to look. It's the biggest decision you're going to make. And you think about how long you agonize over a car or a piece of furniture or wherever it is, and we tend to be quite quick to make a decision about a property for some reason.
I think people just they get it into their minds that they're going to buy, and it's almost like, when's Christmas coming? I want this now, which is understandable. Everyone's excited to buy the first property, but just taking that little bit of extra time to make sure you get the right property.
And that's a good solicitor will calm down your excitement, won't you, and say,
Well,
right, let's be rational about this. Let's, you know,
they're there to
think
advise.
it through.
You are their client. They're there to give you the right advice at the right time.
Yeah.
And so, speaking of solicitors, we spoke about missives concluding and the time period, but how long does it typically take for a purchase to complete?
Well, the good thing is I'm going with ESPC stats.
Well, so you know they're going to be right, Maurice.
The latest figures I've seen, we're looking at about 20, 21, 22 days on the market. So a property launching, getting all the viewings done, perhaps setting a closing date, and then accepting an offer. That period is round about 3 weeks. When an offer is accepted, it really depends on the buyer's situation.
Lots of variables there.
How quickly is their mortgage going to come through? Do any other reports need to be done? It could be a roof report, it could be a damp specialist might be needed, etc. So the time between the offer being accepted and someone actually moving in, there's a few moving parts, but on average I would say you'd be 8 to 12 weeks would be
right,
around about the average.
There's certainly about 100 days, I think. But as you say, there's the extreme from the people who move in 4 weeks to the other end of the spectrum, where it can be 6 months.
I mean, we've occasionally done ones as quick as 4 weeks, but it's only if you've got a cash buyer.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're waiting for mortgage funding, it's always 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Or you should allow for at least 6
Definitely.
weeks for the mortgage to come through. But yeah, from start to finish, from a property launching to someone new moving into it, if you allowed around about 4 months, would probably be about right.
Yeah, and I think to give yourself that time, because it's about coordination, isn't it? About serving notice, moving out wherever you are, making sure you got your removals booked, etc., etc. There is a bit of planning needed, isn't there?
There is, and back to the budgeting side of things as well for first-time buyers. Don't forget, you may have to furnish a property, or you probably do have to furnish a property. Some people in rented accommodation may have their own furniture. If they were in an unfurnished property and they've got their own furniture, that's fine. But if you're moving from a furnished flat into an empty property that you're buying, you've got to think beds, sofas, TVs, kitchen equipment, etc. So again, another little thing to budget for.
And probably go back and just make sure things fit through the door. No, seriously, because it can happen, can't it? Yeah.
Being completely serious about that, once missives have concluded, you're normally allowed 2 other visits.
Yeah, make the most of them,
Between 2 visits, between the missives concluding and your entry date, you're normally allowed 2 visits, and that is the time to measure up.
Yeah.
Does your sofa fit through the door? Does everything else fit through the door?
Yeah, indeed.
Something else that we've noticed, a lot of people are keen to know that they're making a good investment in their properties, that they're making the right decision financially. How do first-time buyers know if a property is a good investment in the long term?
Very good question. The straight answer is you don't, because you don't know what the economy is going to do. The housing market is driven by other factors, confidence in the market, interest rates, government policy,
supply, demand.
Exactly. And not so long ago, we've been through Brexit, COVID, etc. All these things, external factors influence the market. So there's no guarantee, but if you are looking for an investment that will, I guess, perform better than the average of the market, it normally comes down to location. So what you're trying to do is buy into a location that when you come to sell, other buyers will want to buy into that same location. So the popular areas. The problem with that as a first-time buyer is that many of these locations are out of the budget. But as a rough rule of thumb, if we take Edinburgh, for example, as close to the centre of town as possible is really the thing to look for. There's some great areas outlying, but they tend to be more family homes and not the profile for first-time buyers. First-time buyers tend to want to be fairly close to town, close to the centre of town. So the closer you can get to Princes Street, basically, would be the advice there. Yeah. But there's never any guarantees. The Edinburgh market historically has performed extremely well. Absolutely. It rises steadily. There's ups and downs in there, of course, but if you take a long-term approach to property, Edinburgh tends to be a pretty good investment.
And I think you do need to take a long-term approach, really, and see it as a home rather than an investment as well. It really is somewhere to live, isn't it? As opposed to, right, this is a good bet, and I'll sell it in 2 years and move on. And
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think it comes back to what we've said before about choosing the right property. it's a property you're going to live in. It's going to become your home from day one of moving in. So as soon as you get the keys, that becomes your home. It's not just an investment. It would be nice if it makes money and allows you to profit from it, but that's not the reason for buying it. The reason for buying it is to get onto the property ladder, to have a home of your own, to not be reliant on landlords, perhaps giving you notice and you have to then move on. It gives you that security of somewhere to live for a period of time.
Yeah, no place like home, as somebody once said. Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's us. I think that was great, Maurice. You've gone through all the questions that we had and some. Is there anything else you'd like to say as a part?
No, I think just to plug solicitors, contact a solicitor. There's plenty on the ESPC. I think there's over 100 solicitor firms operating in Edinburgh. Plenty of choice for buyers out there. Speak to people that you know who've used solicitors, get recommendations. Speak to the solicitors themselves, get a feel for what they're all about, and engage one as soon as you can.
Yeah, and as you say, they're in the market every day. They're either selling a property or they're offering for somebody, so they'll know. They'll know exactly what you should do. And pricing strategy, when it comes to offering, is so key, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant.
Perfect. Thanks, Maurice.
Thanks,
Pleasure.
Maurice. Thanks again.
No
Take care. So there you go. That was Maurice. I enjoyed that. We had the checklist again. I do love Maurice's checklist. What did he say? You can have 9, and
you'll 7 or 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
But if you'll only ever get 9 because the 10th you won't be able to get the 10th
Your
one, which is price.
Yeah, which is true. But listen,
absolutely.
As the song goes, what is it? Something out of 10 ain't bad. Something like that. Rolling Stones.
Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. So if you are a first-time buyer and you're looking for some more advice, or you're looking for a solicitor, you can head to espc.com. Our agents tab will let you search for a local solicitor, so you can type in your area and find out all the local agents that are near you. And if you are looking for additional advice, we hold first-time buyer events as well, so if you head to our events page, you'll be able to see what events are up and coming. I don't think we've got anything right now.
Nothing in the pipeline. A few things in the works, a few things coming up. But as you say, it doesn't stop you going now to a ESPC solicitor estate agent. And as Maurice makes that point, the earlier you go, the better. Don't wait till you find a property, because there's things that you need that they'll need to do on your behalf before they can offer. So it is about going as early as possible. Yeah, and same with mortgage advisors. We've got ESPC mortgage advisors that you'll be able to find on the mortgages tab on the website. But I think other than that, that's a wrap for this week. It is, yeah. You want me to wrap? No, nobody wants, no one wants to hear that. No, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And as ever, we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.